Hello everyone, it's Kristen Bowman. I hope you had a wonderful weekend, and I hope you're ready to kick off this Monday and this new week with a conversation about love, my favorite topic. So today we're going to talk about what people do to keep love alive. And in the interactions today, we had a lot of fun stuff. Hi, Valentina, Tony, thank you for joining me today. And I love the comments. They were a lot of fun. We've looked at a couple ideas that people have thrown out there, like date night, making sure that people are complimenting one another, and how powerful it is in a loving relationship to keep that complimentary stance alive, to see the positives, to be graceful. So we've had a lot of really neat things come up in the way of communication online, and I want to thank everyone who answered the question and participated in the interaction on Facebook leading up to today's live. So as we look today, I'd like us to really look at some other ways in which we can really keep love alive infinitely, because really that's possible. Does it feel probable in this life? Maybe not so much, but it is possible. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that we can do to keep love alive within ourselves, within our lives, within our relationship. So we're going to talk a little bit about the way we communicate. We're going to talk about how we communicate through challenges and how we communicate with compassion. We're going to keep it very brief, but it's going to give you a little taste of some of the things that are critical. And of course, from a time stance, quality time is important. Even if that's not your number one way to interact in a relationship, quality time takes on a different meaning to each of us. For some women, it's really having their partner share in daily activities, and in some others. So we're going to actually look at that quality of time and put in a different meaning. So what is communication about in a relationship? Too often it is the absence of communication that breaks up the relationships. In fact, that is exactly what breaks up relationships, if you're going to ask me, for my opinion. Because we don't really know how to communicate in a way that opens us. And if we're communicating in a way that kind of closes us down and puts limitations in, then those limitations actually create fear. Fear is the absence of love, and so it creates a little divisiveness, and the more divisiveness we have, the further apart from our partner we feel. And as we start to drift apart, of course, more defenses can come in, more upset can come in, the communication breaks down further, and the next thing you know, you're standing on opposite sides of the universe wondering who the hell you married, or who the hell you're dating, or who you're calling partner, right? Hi, Ken. Thanks for joining us. We just got started. We're talking about communication right now. So you want the communication in a loving relationship to open all doors. And so one of the ways we want to open up those doors is life does not exist without challenges. That is, by definition, in this existence. And so if life is going to occur with challenges, then how do we use those challenges to benefit and grow and prosper our love relationships? Well, I'm going to make it sound very simple. If we really understand love, and we truly feel love for our partner, and we can do it with compassion, which I will talk about in a second, then it is in that compassion that we genuinely want to understand what our partner is feeling. If they're upset about something, tell me, my love, what is it that you're upset about? Like, teach me about you, because I love you so much. I want to know about you. I want to understand what's hurting right now, what's upsetting you right now, so that I can be next to you and with you in your space, so I can stand in the fire with you as together we heal these wounds and move you forward, thereby moving us not only forward but closer together. Are we each willing to open ourselves in that manner to one another? In this culture, we tend to say no to that, because our culture is based mostly on assumption and expectation, and that is completely devoid of the compassion and the inner workings. Expectations and assumptions are very surface, they're very cognitive, they're what we've learned about others, they're very external oriented, they don't share of yourself. I teach a style of communication that's called explore and teach. I usually say teach and explore. But if we're exploring ourselves and we're exploring our partner, then we're in a constant state of teaching and exploring, because if I'm exploring you, you're teaching me about you. And if I'm exploring myself, I'm capable of teaching you about me. So instead of telling you about you, I'm going to teach you about me, and I'm going to ask you about you. If we could do that in a partnership, truly, it sounds much more simple than it is, but if we could truly do that in our partnerships, we would continually open them through the challenges, through the beauty, through the love, and it would continue infinitely, because each of us is an infinite being. So what is this compassion that I said I was going to talk about? Well, compassion in that form of communication becomes very, very important, because if I have compassion for life, mine and yours, then I want to explore it. I want to understand it. I don't want to judge it. I don't want to limit it. I don't want to decide what it is, because that limits it. I don't want to label it, because that limits it. I want to explore it. I want to know it. And too often as we do that, we don't have the words to quite say what our experience is inside. You know what? That's okay. Use metaphors, use analogies, use pictures, use anything that kind of creates the experience you want your partner to learn about you. But don't give up. Always keep learning about yourself and teaching your partner who you are. And know that your partner is in a constant state of change. So always ask. If you make an assumption about your partner, use that assumption to ask a question, and do it with compassion. Compassion says, I love you, dear one. I want you to feel happiness. I want you to feel fulfillment. I want you to flow in that river of abundance with me, where we are always bringing in more yummy stuff. So where we hit a rock in the river, or a tree falls across our path, how do we keep the flow? How do we keep the hum? How do we keep moving in the right direction? By the way we love, by the way we show compassion for those times, by accepting life and its bumps and its bruises and wrapping our arms around it. That is the best I can do to describe compassion. It keeps us open to the warmth and to the embrace of love and life, right? So we want to definitely talk about that with one another in our partnerships. And the final thing, which of course I'm going to draw a blank on, what did I say, Jared, was the final thing? Do you remember? Anyway, if anybody remembers, type it in, because I said there were 4 things I wanted to talk about, and the last one is actually an interesting little twist. So as we start to move through our partnerships, the one thing we want to do is keep love alive. So anytime we have a fear, we know that's the absence of love. So we immediately want to talk about it and use it as grist for the mill for compassion and love, moving us forward and back into that rhythm. So it's all about growth. It's about moving together and understanding we each have our own path, so each of us must show love and acceptance for ourselves. And as we show love and acceptance for ourselves, we learn to show love and acceptance for the other. And so, yes, it was communication. It had something more to do with communication than what I said about explore and teach. I'll think of it. And if I don't, I'll type it on Facebook for everybody to read. But it was rather important, wasn't it? So the other thing, quality time. So the final thing I want to talk about is defining quality time, because people hear quality time and people throw that around all over the place, right? But everybody hears that phrase completely different. Some people hear it as, like I mentioned earlier, it could be quality time can be simply sharing mundane tasks. If I have to do laundry and dishes and my partner stands with me and shares in those tasks, that can be quality time to me, but that may not be quality time to you, right? So again, we go back to communication. What does quality time mean to you? What is important to you that you receive from your partner? And how do you teach that to your partner? So quality time can be, some people mention date night, spending time together. That's fine. But if one person feels quality time is a movie and another person feels quality time is dinner, sometimes that can be different. So again, quality time comes from you knowing the experience you wish to have. And I know you guys hear me say this weekly at least. And that experience inside yourself, once you know what that is, that's how you teach quality time and its meaning to you, to your partner. So if I know the meaning to me, I can then teach it to you. But if I'm not clear inside myself, how do I think you're ever going to understand what that means? You can't. And yet I have these expectations built upon assumption that you will. So again, the expectations and assumptions can always be turned into questions that we then ask our partner so that we are learning about them while at the same time teaching about ourselves. Leave your questions open-ended. Don't try to ask questions that have a direct answer, because then you're asking questions in a way to get what you want out of them. And that's not necessarily what you wish to do. You want to learn about them. That's where the compassion becomes a critical piece of the puzzle. So quality time is one of those things that each of you can start to ask your partners about. What is quality time to you? And tell me what makes you feel special. What time spent with me shows you how much I love you? What would you like to do? And be listening when you ask those questions. Don't think you have the answer. Don't think you know your partner better than they do, because that is no longer communication. It's simply expectation. When you find yourself saying, that's not how you think, that's not why you did it, allow yourself to step back. It doesn't feel good for any of us to hear that, because we know ourselves and we want our partner to know us. And the way we're going to open that is through compassion, knowing that when they do that, they too want to know us, but the way they're going about it might be pushing us aside. There is obviously a lot more to go on this topic. Anybody have any questions, please put them in now, and I would be happy to address your questions. But going forward, let's look at just the simplicity of communication. Are we really learning about the other, or are we telling them about them? And if we find ourselves telling them about them and assuming we know who they are, understand we've put one more notch in the belt of divisiveness in our relationships. Open your heart, open your communication, and where you're fearful, find that truth of your voice that says, this is where I'm fearful. This is where I feel insecure. This is where I doubt our love. This is where I get frightened over something else. But say it. Say it and test the waters of your love, knowing that if your partner truly shows compassion back, that you have made one step in the direction of intimacy and closeness, building a relationship on trust and an open heart. I thank you all for joining me. This is just the tip of the iceberg on this wonderfully joyous topic. May each of you enjoy love in your day today and enjoy love for yourself as life goes on. Thank you so much for joining me, and please visit KristenBomas.com, where you can easily access all of my social circles.